The following story is presented for your enjoyment. This classic work is now in the public domain, making it freely available to be shared and appreciated by all. Some elements may appear outdated or insensitive by today's standards, but we present this work in its original form to preserve its historical context and literary significance. Sit back, relax, and indulge in this entertaining tale. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Every bit helps this channel grow.
Call of the Werewolf by Jim Hendryx. Jody had a date with the dentist, but a nightmare preceded it. It was near dark when Jody Germer finished the chores in the barn and started toward the house. The air had grown colder, and Jody noted the bloody orange glow that now fringed the timbered ridge to the east. Another few minutes and a big old full moon would come poking up over the trees, he knew. Then, suddenly, on the crisp air there came the low, mournful cry of a wolf. Jody stopped in his tracks. The hairs at the nape of his neck stiffened, and he felt goose pimples run down his back and arms. Yet there was something strangely compelling about that wolf call, and without realizing it, he turned and stepped toward the wooded slope. "Where do you think you're going?" The voice was his father's, and Jody turned and saw the older man step from the back door with a rifle in the crook of his arm. Why I?" Jody stammered. "I just figured to climb the hill a bit for a look at the moon." "Wait a couple minutes and you'll be able to see her from here," the old man said. "Besides, it just plain ain't good sense, going up there in the woods without a gun, now that the wolves are down from the high country again." Jody said nothing. "I'm going over to Ansel's," his father said. "Ansel lost some sheep last night, and a bunch of us are going over there with guns and set a trap and elbow pass for those doggone wolves, using small flock of sheep as bait." "Let me go with you." His father shook his head. "We may be up most all night." "But there's no school tomorrow," Jody argued. "It's Saturday tomorrow." "Yeah, I know, but you gotta be in town to the dentist's at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Did you forget that?" Jody shook his head, remembering what he'd been told by the nurse who came to the school. "Those eye teeth of yours are getting longer and sharper. They're like wolf fangs, and aside from being unsightly, they're ruining your bite. The dentist can file off the points, I believe. In any case, I'm making an appointment for you to see him at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning." Watching his father get into the pickup truck and drive off toward Ansel's, Jody stood for a long time in the yard, unmoving. Then, as the wolf cry sounded again, he started up the slope into the timber, moving as though in a trance. There was no fear in him now, no rational thought. He was in the grip of a strange, animal-like excitement that seemed to lift him out of the world of reason into a world where only instinct ruled. High on the ridge was a spring that bubbled into a natural catch basin of rock, and here Jody paused for a drink. But as he lowered his face to the mirror-like surface of the basin, he suddenly shrank back in horror. For the image reflected was not his own, except for the fanged eye teeth, but was instead clearly that of a wolf. The shock of it only sent him further into a state of hypnosis, however, so that he felt no particular surprise on looking down at the thick gray hair that matted his arms and body now. He realized only vaguely that he was still a human in the form of a wolf, one of those rare creatures seldom mentioned above, a whisper, a werewolf. At the sound of a whining growl behind him, he swung about to see a lean gray-brown wolf a few yards away. He growled and showed his fangs, but the other wolf, a female, quite plainly had no wish to fight. She retreated a few mincing steps, turned her head to look at him, then started slowly away in the night. Jody hesitated for but a moment before following her. They trotted away toward the north. At last the female wolf halted abruptly, sniffed the wind, and gave a short, sharp bark. A whole chorus of barks replied from close at hand. This was the wolf pack that had been wreaking havoc on the livestock in the area for the past few days, and now Jody saw the slinking gray forms come out of the brush on all sides. He felt a moment of panic, the ruff on his neck standing straight up, before a sort of fatalistic calm settled over him. A great dark wolf, obviously the leader of the pack, came bounding up to Jody, snapping his teeth in challenge. Jody had no intention of disputing the Dark One's leadership, till one of the other's fangs painfully clipped one of his ears. Instinctively, then, He whirled and ripped at the dark wolf's throat with his own fangs. It was the suddenness of the attack that accounted for its success. The dark one showed his surprise by immediately trying to leap backward, but he was too late. Jody already had a death grip on his neck, and he hung on now with all the strength in his jaws, knowing the swift and deadly retaliation that would come if ever he lost his hold. They rolled over and over on the ground, yet Jody still kept his grip on the other's neck. The dark wolf made a frenzied lunge to escape then, and abruptly Jody felt the dark one's throat give way and a gush of blood cover his own muzzle. He was dead game, though, and made one last attempt to come at Jody. But his legs folded under him. He could not rise. Suddenly the whole wolf pack charged in on him, literally ripping him apart. It was the law of the fallen, and it made no difference that the downed one had been their own leader, but scant seconds before, Jody was sickened by the sight and by the taste of blood in his mouth. He turned and slunk away into the brush, wanting only to put as much distance as possible between himself and that awful scene of carnage. Then suddenly he became aware of a change in the sounds behind him. He heard the high, bloodthirsty hunting cries of the pack as they lined out on his trail. They were out to get him for running away. In their eyes, this made him worse than the one who had fought and lost. He ran as he'd never run before, and the cries of the pack behind him grew closer and closer. They were used to running for their lives, and he was not. He shuddered as he thought of them closing in on him as they had on the dark one back there. He could hear them very close behind him now, and he knew they would catch him within 100 yards. Then he saw a moving blotch of white in his path. Sheep! This was Elbow Pass. He remembered at once the trap that his father and Ansel and the other farmers had set here for the wolves. It was then the deadly fusillade of shots ripped the night. Something struck his front leg like a blow, upsetting him, and he rolled over and over along the ground. He got up and ran again, and now the shots were all behind him, cutting down the pursuing wolf pack. Jody didn't stop running till he reached the back stoop of his house. There he sat down, gasping for air, and he quietly passed out. He felt stiff when he came to, and he got up and went into the dark house. That was some nightmare he'd had, he thought, as he lighted the lamp. And then he saw the bright burn a bullet had made across his forearm and knew it had been no dream. He was examining the scratch on his ear when his father came in. "What you doing still up?" asked the older man. "And how come you're marked up like that?" Jody thought fast. He said, "I sneaked over to Elbow Pass to watch the fun. Got a bullet burn from a ricochet on my arm and cut my ear on a branch. You sure cleaned up on him, didn't you?" "Yeah," his father said proudly. "Don't think a one got away, though Ansel claims there was one out ahead of the pack that he knocked down but couldn't find hide nor hair of afterward. You better wash up them cuts and get to bed. You got to see the dentist in the morning about them fangs of yours, you know." "Yes," Jody said, "and it'll be a pleasure," he thought.